Hi, mystical geniuses. I'm Ananda, the galactic mystic, and this is navigational astrology, where we are navigating the leading edge of consciousness. We have entered our final eclipse season of 2021. So let's talk about this first full moon eclipse in Taurus. Welcome, welcome, my subscriber family. If you would like to join this community, please take a moment and click that little Flower of Life button in the bottom right-hand side. That way you won't miss a thing and we can connect more often. So we begin the final season, eclipse season of 2021 with the longest lunar eclipse we've had in almost 600 years. It should be visible in most of the United States, and I'm sure in many other places as well. This eclipse season unites two lunar cycles, the lunation of power, which is the Scorpio Taurus lunation we are in currently, and the lunation of truth, which is the Sagittarius Gemini lunation that we will be closing out the eclipse season with. This is a portal of experience that has many layers, hidden messages, and it's asking us to look in some places we may not be too excited to look. We can think of this in more simple terms as a journey of power reclamation that leads us to a brand new truth. And that may sound pretty cute on the surface or kind of cutesy or simple, but the process of reclaiming and balancing power in our lives involves the themes of Pluto and Venus. For one, it involves victim and victimization themes, storylines, tapes, patterns, cycles, etc., and hidden aspects of ourselves and the people and situations in our lives that we maybe have not been able to see clearly until now. Truth is the result of facing demons, monsters, hidden things in the closet. So when we allow ourselves to become the hero, we have monsters to slay, don't we? And it's that process that we learn the truth of who we are, because certain things can only be revealed or seen under certain extreme situations, right? That's why diamonds become diamonds, because of the pressure of the coal. That's why the magic of healing our traumas gives us kind of a superpower. It's through facing those demons that we find a truth that makes us better. So the question is, do we shy away from what we find? Do we reject what we see, or do we allow it to become a part of us? You know, like I always think of what are they called? I think it's Urskeks in the Dark Crystal, the original, where like at the end, the mystics and the Skeksis, you know, merge into one being. And before that, we had thought of them as, you know, clearly good and bad, but when they become united, they become this like super being. That's the power of reclaiming the shadow, or what is perceived as the shadow. So there are so many layers to this full moon in this eclipse season that it's almost overwhelming to know where to begin. So maybe a good place to begin would be just some basics about a Taurus full moon. So a Taurus full moon is a culmination of the Taurian concerns on the axis of power, which Taurus shares with Scorpio. And this is in navigational astrology. Taurian concerns are personal power, our resources, our serenity, our peace of mind. It's the earth, the animals, the natural world. This is the abundant, shady grove that the hero seeks healing, peace, a drink of cool water after he has been in battle. It's in this, you know, peaceful scene that he closes his eyes and listens to the birds and listens to the wind blowing through the trees, and he is restored and healed, and his power has returned to him, and he is at peace and in balance. So let's take these basics of Taurian energy and push them forward as we talk about the rest of what's going on with this specific Taurus full moon. So I started talking about Medusa the Gorgon back in our last full moon. It was an Aries full moon in October. And I talked a lot about the mythology of Perseus, Medusa, and Andromeda. So maybe if you want to go, if you missed that and you want to hear some of that mythology, I'll put the link to that video in the description box below because it applies to this current situation as well. So the stories of Perseus, Medusa, and Andromeda, they are intertwined and they tell us some stories that are obvious, and there are many parts of the story that are beneath the surface. You have to go a little deeper to find the true meaning. Traditionally, the mythology of Perseus and his slaying of Medusa story is usually interpreted like all other hero versus monster stories and myths, which is the victory of rational thought over the dark and pesky instinct, intuition, emotion, animalistic, natural energies. You know, pesky intuition, right? Heaven forbid we have emotion. Let's definitely always use rational thought and just cut that right off. Silly. But you can think of this as, you know, the masculinity exerting itself over the feminine in metaphorical terms. You can think of it as power, exerting power over the innocent, or, you know, this whole victimization theme as well. So I like to think of the traditional, you know, mythological interpretations kind of like mainstream news. There's an underlying truth that is usually left out, and we must dig and use our powers of the divine feminine to find the real complex truth beneath the smoke and mirrors. But we need rational thought for that too, don't we? So it's actually a balance of these things, a balance of power that we're after. So let's talk about the Chandra symbol for this first eclipse of eclipse season. Taurus 27. A man sculpturing, I'm not sure that's a word, a man sculpturing hedges into animal farms. Making a great deal of something out of almost nothing is the mark of fantasy or uninhibited imagination. You prefer to be presented with basic, simple, and ordinary things. Inside your soul, you turn these into what they originally were, releasing their primal power. When alchemy runs this close to the bone, it is astonishing what it can do. Tackling long-standing knots and obstacles of every kind is sensed as nourishment and opportunity. A sacrificial incarnation can best frame itself in fantasy and imagination, and thereby hug the edge between worlds perfectly. The path here is to stay under while peeking over the top, to play it as straight as can be, while coming from an irrepressible source that can come through this peculiar form with flying colors. So there's so much here, and that is the work of Elias Lonsdale, which is beautiful, deep, and I like all the metaphors and the, you know, it's appealing to my Pisces moon. So that's a lot of words though, right? It's kind of hard to suss that out when you hear it just one time. I've had to read this numerous times. So let's talk about the aspects of this Taurus full moon, and then we'll get into the mythology and some fixed star astrology, which will give us some crazy wild depth to this story. So Taurus is ruled by Venus, so we have to look at what Venus is doing. She's currently in Capricorn. excuse me, where she will be in Capricorn until March of 2022. And this is because she's going retrograde in Capricorn in late December. And so she's going back and forth and back and forth, not back and forth. She's going through Capricorn, back, and then back again until March 2022. So this is a long time, and we're definitely going to feel this. She's going to be doing some reorganizing in our lives. And if you want to know where that is most likely going to be felt for you, look at your natal chart and find where Capricorn is. And the concerns of that house will be most likely where Venus is doing some work for you, some rearranging. Venus represents our relational, our creative natures, as well as our money, our values, our personal resources. And in Capricorn, she's pretty serious about these things. And she's not inclined to be flighty or cavalier. This is about our relationship with the structures in our lives, control systems, and the powers that be, the puppet strings that are on us, all of that. This tells us that we are supposed to be more mature, more dignified, more practical about how we treat other people. And we'll be talking a lot more about this in the weeks to come. So this Taurus full moon has a very tight sesquiquadrate with Venus, Taurus's ruler. So this makes this energy most important. This brings in a very powerful, palpable, feminine energy in this lunation, and it encourages us to embrace, protect, and welcome our loved ones and our children, if applicable. There's an urge to express our love and care to those around us. And if you think about it, doing that, if we do that well, if we are comfortable being vulnerable and expressing our love, that is a type of power balance within. This full moon is also conjunct the North Node, which means that this culmination of reclamation of power serves your future and actually the future of all of humankind. The collective benefits from the work that you're doing and guides you and all of us forward on our destined karmic path as a people. And this can feel scary and out of our comfort zone, for sure. There's a trine with Pluto that gives us some emotional depth, powerful intuition, and the ability to perceive all of these things that are below the surface. And we may not be able to express this with words, but we can feel it deeply within in our viscera. We have an opposition with Mercury, which connects us to our roots, and we might feel like consulting with the wise women in our lives. And even if these wise women are no longer incarnated on this plane, you can still commune with them. They are there waiting to support you on the spirit realm. We also have a square with Jupiter, which makes us enthusiastic and less concerned about the risks involved in whatever we're doing. And that can be good or bad, right? So let's go a little bit deeper and pierce the veil of this thing. So this Taurus full moon eclipse that kicks off this eclipse season is exactly conjunct the fixed star Algol. Algol represents the head of Medusa in the constellation of Perseus. So he used her head as a magical talisman to defeat the sea monster that was coming for Andromeda. And Andromeda was in this perilous situation because of the hubris of her mother, Cassiopeia. So it's all intertwined. And so Algol, the star, represents the talisman head of Medusa. And its name comes from the Arabic word ghul, G-H-U-L, which means the demon's head. And it is the origin of the English word for ghoul. The Hebrews referred to this star as the head of Satan, and the Chinese name for this word, or the Chinese word for this star meant piled up corpses. Now, Gorgons were originally protective deities, and Medusa was the most beautiful of them. And I believe she was the only mortal as well. Her name, Medusa, meant guardian, protectress, queen. And there's a connection here to Kali Ma and the protective powers of the gargoyles that were carved into Roman cathedrals. Scary, but were there as protectors. So the imagery associated with these monsters, it taps into our primal fear of death, that fear of the unknown, that fear of the tragic nature of life. And, you know, we all have that deep within. But the truth is not available, you know, at skin level, because you look at a gargoyle and you think that's a monster, but that's a monster that's there to protect you. Isn't that interesting? So if you're familiar with the Heaven's Gate cult, the leader of that cult had his sun conjunct this fixed star. Joe Biden has this star exactly opposing his sun, which means that this full moon eclipse is exactly opposing Joe Biden's sun. Now, if you've ever had a full moon exactly opposing your sun, you might recall it as being very uncomfortable, to say the least. So this will be interesting. Other people who have this fixed star prominent in their chart, Johnny Depp, I believe, has his Mercury on fixed star Algol. And, you know, his connection with sort of more macabre themes and movies, his work has a darkness about it and also a creative genius about it, which we'll talk about in a minute. But, you know, you can see that darkness there. So Algol is actually a double star system, and you can think of there, you know, there's actually a darker and a lighter star. And the darker star circles the brighter star in about 69 hours. Now, we can make some sex jokes about the number 69, but this number also represents the yin yang, and it's literally the symbol for the zodiac sign of Cancer. The yin yang being the perfect balance of masculine and feminine energies and of all polarities, and Cancer being ruled by the moon, is a protective, sensitive, feminine, intuitive nature. And this points again to the balance, rise of the feminine power. And the feminine is not just love and hugs and puppies and flowers. This is, you know, the dark side of the feminine is terrifying. Like, think of the terrifying power of Mother Nature, the terrifying power of Kali Ma as she loves us by slaying our ego demons and freeing us from the illusion of Maya. It's very deep. This is very, very deep. So we're talking here about extremes of power and vitality, instinct and intuition, raw, primal, illogical, instinctual power. Think of Black Moon Lilith and her mythology, turbulent, passionate, and urges that may feel compulsive. There's an attraction to danger and the will to survive and overcome death, loss, and pain. The ability to inspire fear in others, which can be used for protection or destruction. This creates the possibility for expressions of unparalleled courage and creative genius, like I was talking about with Johnny Depp. But that can become like, it can turn into like a rampage of greed and insanity. I think Picasso had this star prominent in his chart as well, and maybe Salvador Dali. So there's this creative genius, yet a darkness. And this star is just forever has been associated with death, loss, pain, and terrifying power. So within this storm, we may be called to expose ourselves to danger in order to help others. You can think of the power of a mother who taps into superhuman strength to lift a car off of her child who is trapped beneath. You can think of the woman who gave birth in a tree as tsunami waters were raging beneath her. You can think of the fierce love of Kali Ma, the compassionate. And at this point, I encourage you to follow the link in the description, and in the blog post for this Taurus full moon, go back and read the Chandra symbol again, looking at the words and tying all of this together. I send you all my love. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing and for being here. Come to the community tab every day for daily energy and astrology reports. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and join my newsletter for all the most timely updates on everything galactic mystic going on. I'll see you next week. Have a great one. And I hope your reclamation of power is all you dreamed it would be.